assisted development with a wide skill set, knowledge, and experiences. She empowers and builds people's capacities through mentorship. Appointed by Yale University, the Inter-American Foundation, and Canary, she's passionate about ensuring that women and gender concerns are mainstreamed across many of the multilateral environmental conventions meeting global agendas and targets. She sits on local and regional international committees. She also holds a master's degree in international development economics from the Yale University. Y'all, please welcome Ruth Spencer.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I always identify myself as a local community representative because people should be at the center of all our development processes. Sometimes we forget, but you have to constantly remind governments and big organizations we are all set up to focus on people. I don't normally talk from presentations, and I did prepare one, but before I actually get into the PowerPoint presentation, I'd just like to give an overview of my work in Antigua. And from Antigua, my local situation, I've gone global because at the global level, they know governments are not meeting many of the targets. And you have the local groups who are the ones with the ambition. Are governments ambitious? They talk ambition, but in reality, the ambition is on the ground. The urgency that the global crisis faces, who is taking the actions? It's just that many times, we have the people there, but they don't have a voice in decision making. Before I came here on Sunday, a woman called me and she said, Miss Spencer, I'm turning our local community cemetery into a nature park. I said, really? How are you going to do that? She said, I've started to plant flowers. I've started to plant fruit trees. And I said, what else? She said, the families who have dead people, they're contributing seeds. And she said, a couple of them from England told me they're already shipping marble benches. I said, my God, that is ambition. And those are the kind of groups that I work with. It's their ideas. They live in communities. They see what's happening and they want to be a part of the solution. Many times they go to government offices. You know, people may listen, but it stays there. So what they want is somebody who believes in them, somebody who is going to listen and help them to move the process along. So in my work, groups come, people meet you anywhere, supermarkets, in the parking lot, in churches. Miss Spencer, can I have a word with you? And I never put them off to say, let's make an appointment. I give them an ear. And you won't believe, out of that little conversation, ideas come. And I always said, you're an individual. I can only work with a group because you need to get legally registered, get a bank account open, so that we can begin to, develop you as a group, mobilize resources. And so that's what's been happening in Antigua. And over the process, since 2015, we have 10 new legally registered groups. So they're in the intellectual property organization, they have bank accounts, and they're implementing projects. They're implementing projects in mercury, plastics, biodiversity, climate, chemicals and waste, international waters. And the Jeff Small Grants has been the chief funding agency for these groups. So out of that now, as I said, local to global, we were able to get some of these groups accredited. Some accredited to UNEP, some to UNCCD, some to SICOM. So it means that the conversation is not just local, but I help them with their case studies, their stories, their videos, their knowledge management products, and governments are required to report. All the conventions you have to report. So, for example, biodiversity, the last NBSAP, I knew when the deadline for reporting was, but I wasn't hearing from the government. So I brought all the groups together, and I invited the government's focal points. And they were amazed at the kind of actions that was taking place. And we documented that. And so they were represented in the national reporting. And when you go to the meetings, countries are saying, wow, you know, so much things is happening at the local level, but you need committed people on the ground to work with these local stakeholders. You know what's powerful for me? The ICZM agreement. I'm sure everybody from Latin America and the Caribbean knows about the ICZM agreement. That is the power for the local people, because ICZM came out of the Rio Conventions. That was when 1992, 30 years ago, the Rio Convention had something called Principle 10. What did Principle 10 say? 192 governments said environmental issues should not be the concern only of governments. They need the inputs of the people. But we have deviated from that roadmap. You know, our governments, our politicians think they know all the answers. And the case study I'm going to share with you today, you can put it on the thing, is to show how the power of the local people in Antigua stopped a major project that would have devastated our largest wetlands. So after COVID, the government wanted to diversify the economy. And they came up with something called special economic zones. And the Chinese was given, even though we have laws that protect certain areas, the government still broke the law and were giving out these lands to foreign investors. The Chinese got our largest marine protected area. Because that was out on the water, we didn't have as much control. The fishermen would come in and said, this is taking place, they see a lot of mangroves being damaged, and pictures were coming. But then, just before COP26, the Glasgow COP, an Indian investor was given our largest wetlands area. It was not owned by government. They bought it from a private investor. And my God, we began to see things taking place. So what we did, we went on the radio. People listened to the radio, and we began to say the value of this area, which was about 200 acres. It's a birding site, and we would have visitors from Japan and Europe come with their binoculars, and they would sit down for days waiting to see certain birds come into the area. It's a cultural site. It's a site where families on holidays that have long weekends would have their little camps and put up their things. It's an area, as I said, for wetlands, so it means our mangroves are there that have all the functions, regulation, protection from storms. It's a fishing area, and people really got annoyed. We invited them on Saturdays to come out to take some site visits through the area. The investor had already started clearing the lands, making big roads. He had put up his fence, containers were going into the area, and we advocated, we spoke, we told the government, you know, it's going to destroy us. We cannot have that type of development which destroys our biodiversity, which does not really contribute or mitigate against any of the climate impacts. And we were constantly on the radio. You know, you keep hearing us on the radio every day saying something. Eventually, you know what happened? The investor pulled up the fence, packed his containers and left. He still owns the land, so we do not know what he's going to do with it. But we felt good because I don't think he realized, I don't think he was informed of the value of, our largest wetlands. So we had a victory in that. Another thing that's very important is with the local groups, we talk about transformational change. And when you're working with a group, when you start with them, they're soft, but gradually you see them developing. And a lot has to do with how we work with them. A lot has to do with how we work with them. And as I said, if you're a strong leader, if people believe in you, they will follow you. They will emulate some of the traits you have. So if I push for advocacy, you see them starting to advocate. And I'm telling you, we told them, anytime you see things happening in your community, report it. And listen, the reporting has been good. So we have, we talk about early warning signals. The local people are some of the best early warning signals. They see the things that are happening. We talk about coastal erosion, the sand. We talk about these in your research projects, but they live there. They see what's happening. And our government has made some bad environmental decisions already with hotel development because they don't like to observe the setbacks. They want to be right on the beach, right? They want their guests to see the sun. And because of that, a lot of those natural ecosystems are destroyed. In one area of Antigua, so much mangroves were pushed down that every time rain comes, a community gets flooded. And what's the result? What is the access to justice? You got to move them. That's the recommendation. These people are, but the government don't have no resources to move a whole community. And it's so important that we follow the principles of access to information, consultation, because no amount of money can bring back those natural protective systems after they are destroyed. So what's been happening in Antigua with the Escazú agreement, our government ratified. They ratified really quickly. I'm not sure if they were aware what they were signing, but they ratified, and we hold them accountable to that. So anytime there's something going on and we don't get information, you see the people in the communities, as soon as they see a backhoe clearing something and something looks odd, they make a telephone call, something is happening. So we are able to put a lid on it before anything major happened. We had a situation where the mosquito fogging was used in Malatine, and that's a banned spray. And the report came, all the bees are dying. So, stuff like that, we have to go quickly to the focal point. You have to stop using that because it's affecting the pollinators. Without pollinators, you ain't going to have no agriculture. So this is the power of the people. And as you know, right now, most of the scientific processes, UNEP have this science policy panel coming into being. They want local knowledge. ICBES, the scientific arm for biodiversity, they have a component for local knowledge. I'm a part of it. And before they do any of the assessments, they discuss it with local community, indigenous people, globally. We come to a meeting, they discuss with us, how do you feel about that, what knowledge you have to contribute to this. And so even globally, local voices are being asked to contribute to processes. But for some reason in the Caribbean, the local people aren't seen as stakeholders. When the governments have consultation, you hear the chambers of commerce, the unions, this and that, but you never hear them pushing for the local groups to be involved, even though those locally groups are registered. And when we were doing, the OAS had some consultations, you know, they said they invited the local groups. When we were on the call, I saw 3 groups. I said, Antigua has more groups than 3. When we were doing the VNR, just a handful. I said we have over 25 legally registered groups. But I think people have gotten too lazy. It's extra work when you're working with local groups. It's not an 8 to 4 job. You would probably have to put out time in the evenings or the weekends, you know, when the groups are having their meetings. But some of us, we're not willing to take on that extra workload. Some people say it's hard to work with community people, but I enjoy working with them. I learn from them, they learn from me, and their ambition keeps pushing me along. Last week, we have a group that's doing eggs. And you know, they realize we can't continue to wait on imports of chicken feed. And they brought a lot of the older heads together, and I heard them planning to start developing alternatives using food waste from the hotels, corn husks, a lot of other type of leaves. And I was amazed. I said, boy, this is the kind of power that we have in the people. They look ahead and they see the crisis. Because one of these days, these ships may not be able to reach our shores, and they want to be prepared with local alternatives. I've heard our focal point for chemicals and waste also said, Ruth, we have to focus now on looking on local alternatives. All these chemicals that are causing so much exposure, especially to women and children. And sometimes I said, we are not doing enough because we know a lot of these chemicals are not good, but we don't inform the people. The information stays among a few of us. But if the people know something is causing harm, you think they're going to continue using it? But no, we have to really begin to take on new roles and responsibilities. I do my best, not only in Antigua with the ICZM agreement. I've been working with the government of Grenada. I know the PSOI pusher. They ratified. So when ICZM had the meeting, Belize ratified. I work with whoever I know in the country. If it's a CSO, I said, listen, you have to empower people because power is in the people. And when the people get together and stand up, governments have to listen. So we need really now to really push for more inclusion of the local people in our projects. I was at the bond meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I know there are people here from Colombia. I was in a side event, and I heard the guy from Colombia saying, this global stocktake has so much challenges. And I said, what kind of challenges? He said, I'm reaching out to the people, but it's just like the people not readily accepting. I say you have to build trust with them. You know, Colombia is one of the countries where we have the largest amount of killing of environmental defenders. And maybe they don't really know how you're coming, if you're sincere, if you're genuine. And he said, you know, we signed on to this Paris Agreement, and we have to now implement at the local level. And he said, I'm reaching out, but it's so difficult. But I encouraged him. I said, it will take time. Just continue to, you know, go to the people, include them in your consultations, allow them to participate, hear their voices, and things will happen. So that's my call to you today. That's my call. In your communities, in your research, discuss, talk with the local people, give them a voice, write in their communities. You don't have to bring them to your universities or to the city. Go right where they live, work with them, build that relationship, And I'm telling you, a lot of the human relations shortages that we say we have in our states, that's just a cover. In our community, there's so much educated, talented, and committed people, but we don't build those partnerships. We don't build those collaborations. So you have so much people who are idle, but they're knowledgeable. And it's for us now to see the value in, including our people in our processes, educate them, and you're going to see how easy life will become for you because they'll help you to do a lot of your work. Local people are always contributing knowledge. They know what's happening, and just, plan with them, sit with them, talk with them, meet them at their level, and things will take place. Thank you. I did have a presentation. If they want to show the pictures, they can, but I just wanted to have a conversation with you to remind you to include, to allow people to participate, get their voices in our programs and projects so that in the long run, all of us can be educated and can take actions. Thank you.